Daniel Craig has been James Bond for 13 years now, but in No Time to Die, he will be stepping aside, hanging up his tux, and making way for somebody new. How on earth will they manage to breathe new life into this 60-year-old series? Allow us to explain. To say that No Time to Die will be different from Bond movies of the past is a huge understatement. The first one came out almost 60 years ago, and in the decades since 1962, times have changed. Imagine watching a contemporary movie where an actor delivers the line, "Why do Chinese girls taste different from all other girls?" with a straight face. That's the first line of You Only Live Twice, a movie in which Sean Connery dresses up like a Japanese farmer. Fun fact, the screenplay was written by Roald Dahl. Needless to say, this kind of stuff doesn't fly anymore. Daniel Craig Bonds are much better in this regard, but even still, women in those movies are mostly consigned to, let's call them, supporting roles. They're still referred to as Bond girls, after all. But things look like they're about to change on this front. Not only is Léa Seydoux, 007's love interest from Spectre, returning, but her and Bond seem to be in a real relationship. In the trailer, you can even see them having a tiff in the car. But even bigger news, No Time to Die looks like it will be introducing a new 007. Daniel Craig has been very public about his desire to retire from the role of James Bond, but who will replace him? If the trailer is anything to go by, the new 007 will be a woman of color. Her name is Nomi, and she's played by Lashana Lynch. She's been a 00 agent for 2 years, and in the trailer, she tells Daniel Craig and his old school Bond that, quote, "The world has moved on, Commander Bond, so stay in your lane. You get in my way, and I will put a bullet in your knee, the one that works." But how do you spice up such an ancient, lumbering giant of a franchise? Revamping a movie series that started in 1962 is no easy task. There are accepted ways of doing things, certain notes that you have to hit, and certain lines that you have to include no matter what. To shake up, not stir the new Bond, they've brought in the woman of the moment, Phoebe Waller-Bridge. She started out with a one-woman show at the 2014 Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and since then her career has also played out, fittingly, as a sort of one-woman show. She has taken over the world of movies and TV almost single-handedly. That Fringe show from 2014 was called Fleabag, and if that sounds familiar, it's because she eventually turned it into a show which absolutely cleaned up at this year's Emmys. The show is PWB through and through. She came up with the idea for it, wrote out the script, produced it, and then after all of this, she starred in the thing. If you haven't seen it already, you should. It's one of the best shows in recent memory, and Donald Glover described it as one of the only true new pieces of art in recent years. He said that she figured out a way on screen to instantly become your hilarious best friend, elbowing you under the table when someone across the way has food in their teeth. But Fleabag is the polar opposite of a James Bond movie in every way. It's a comedy that's more about the contradictions, quirks, and depth of its characters than it is about international espionage. The main character, played by Phoebe, breaks the fourth wall to draw you in, and you don't realize the degree of her dishonesty as a narrator until it smacks you in the face later in the show. Donald Glover is right about the fact that she feels like a friend. But James Bond isn't supposed to feel like a friend. He's supposed to feel like James Bond. But not to worry, she's got spy experience too. After getting big-time recognition for Fleabag, she wrote another show, which also won a bunch of Emmys. It's called Killing Eve and is a classic spy story in a lot of ways. There's a Russian assassin named after a type of poem, a fight inside a Paris apartment, and a plot that goes straight to the top. But it also steps into uncharted waters for this type of story. The relationship between Eve, the MI6 agent, played by Sandra Oh, and the assassin, Villanelle, played by Jodie Comer, is obsessive, emotional, and even romantic. If you've seen it, you'll know that it bodes very well for a more complex but still action-packed 007. What does Phoebe Waller-Bridge say about this whole thing? For one, she's just excited to be in this position. It's every young screenwriter's dream to get a crack at James Bond. She said, quote, "It's just so exciting being in the room and creating stuff and collaborating with people, and the moment you start touching something and it feels like it's going to be funny or heartbreaking or something. That kind of adrenaline you get from that, the excitement of knowing that people are going to see it, there's just nothing like it." Waller-Bridge wasn't actually part of the original screenwriting team though. She was hired after the producers, including Daniel Craig, started to feel like the script was a little stale. This movie is supposed to be the start of a new era for Bond, a meta torch passing meant to mirror what's happening more broadly in film and TV. Pulling off such a transition is a delicate balance, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge was hired to turn dreams into reality. As she says it, they were already doing that themselves. They're having that conversation with themselves the whole time. My involvement was much more practical. Just, you're a writer, we need some help with these scenes. Come up with some dialogue for these characters. She said that all they were looking for were a few tweaks across a few of the characters and a few of the storylines. When I came on board, she said, I was just facilitating as many of their ideas and their instincts as possible. How do you feel about the new direction of Bond? Are you excited for Lashana Lynch to take over? Let us know in the comments, and feel free to leave some farewell messages to Daniel Craig. Also, don't forget to subscribe to ScreenRant for James Bond and much, much more.